Why the Hindi heartland weighs more than their share in the Lok Sabha majorities? Is South being underrepresented again? And what are the cases and instances in front of us? And most importantly, what are the consequences that we need to look out for? A country like India that is so diverse, do you think it is a possibility that large regions can also have contribution to majority, but they have very limited say? What I am talking about is not just a constitutional accident, but actually a political reality of our times. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we will be understanding about this political reality. What does it mean? Why Hindi heartland is being overrepresented and why multiple other states remain underrepresented in Lok Sabha majorities. Let us try to understand everything around it, what are the causes and most importantly the consequences. So when we are talking about this situation, first it is important to understand that what exactly is the issue that I am talking about, why I am saying specifically that Lok Sabha majorities have bigger representation of Hindi heartland. In this context, we have to start with understanding that what is the case of absolute majority. So if you want to come in power at the central government, at the union government, that will happen through Lok Sabha elections, correct? So you have to bring a majority here. What is the count of majority here? The count is 272 seats out of 543 seats, correct? This is the contribution. Now, when we are talking about this particular number, this might seem neutral to you, but it is not, because it has been seen, especially of last 15 Lok Sabha majorities that have been formed. Out of that, 11 have this number where the majority representation is from and contribution from Hindi heartland. So, who is getting to form the majority? In 11 chances out of 15, it is the Hindi heartland. And this is the core issue and the political reality that we are talking about today. If we talk constitutionally, it does not matter where the MP is coming from, only this particular number is important. But if southern, eastern and northeastern states are constantly being underrepresented, it becomes a very important and a serious question, because this is about fair representation in a federal democracy that is our country, India. Now, we will be moving to understand that why are we constantly talking about regional distribution in majority. Why this has become a question. When we are talking about regional distribution in that 543 seats, you have to start with understanding that India is a federal and a diverse country. It is not a homogeneous nation state. It is a country which is known for its cultural, linguistic, religious diversity. And in this context, if a policy is passed by parliament, then it will apply to all states, regardless one region has given consent or not, regardless if there is local opposition or not. For example, if we talk about Article 370, this was brought in by the abrogation of it was brought in through parliament, but it was about the state of Jammu and Kashmir, back then erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. So this decision was taken by MPs outside Jammu and Kashmir. So that is why we need to focus on regional distribution as well, because a region which is not associated can be directly affected by law, but it is a possibility that numerically their contribution to majority does not exist. So numerically, which supposedly is neutral, they might be powerless, and where the effect should be taken place, they might be direct hit. So we have to remember, when we are looking at that number 272, it is not just arithmetic, but it is geography of political power and where it is coming from. And that is why we are questioning this regional distribution, because if we look at representation in Lok Sabha majorities in especially 15 election, last 15, then 73.3% chances we are seeing that the majority is coming from Hindi Heartland. South India only in 6 elections out of 15 has been represented well in the Lok Sabha majorities. Now this brings us to multiple things, that North has been underrepresented only 4 times. But when you talk about South, it has been underrepresented 60%, that means 9 times. And if you look at elections such as 1977, 1989, South had only 2% of government benches, and this clearly calls out the regional inequality that we are seeing in terms of contribution to Lok Sabha majorities, and that means that the legislation would be in accordance to the where majorities are coming from, not by the people or the state that have been left underrepresented, and which raises huge question about a federal democracy here. Now the first thing that we need to understand here is that why is this happening? So when we are talking about the causes, the first cause in front of us is population. When we are talking about representation in our country, it is population based. Lok Sabha seats, they are dependent mainly on population size. Can you tell me in the comment section which state you are from and how many Lok Sabha seats are present there? And you will see a huge variability based on population. So northern states have higher population, their population is increasing at a higher rate, they have more representation. Southern states controlled population, and that is why relatively they are at a disadvantage in terms of seat. This is the first cause that we can understand. Second cause is also associated with representation only, but this is about delimitation. Now seat distribution has been frozen since 1976, and as of now it has been extended till 2026 census is concluded and the delimitation will take place. Now this was done to prevent sudden power shift because the population has been rising at a very phenomenal scale, but it did not correct the imbalance which was present here. So this remains even after there could have been immense changes in the population number. However, we also get to see when we are talking about causes, there are certain political as well as social causes. First, when we are talking about Hindi Heartland, we also get to see there has been a lot of political mobilization which is Heartland centric, because when we are talking about North India, unfortunately the politics here are majorly driven by caste and religion. That's why we get to see large electoral waves changing and sweeping victories. Can you give me an example of this in a very recent election that we have seen in 2025? But when we talk about southern states, we get to see that it is dominated by strong regional parties, and that is why we also find that national parties struggle to gain uniform dominance. So if the national parties are trying to bring in Lok Sabha majority, they have to focus on this particular region. And another factor is the uneven national party present. If you talk about Bharatiya Janata Party, it is strongest in the Hindi belt. If you talk about INC, it is now only surviving in limited pockets, and as a result, we are seeing that the majority will be automatically skewed based on which national party is present where. So let's just say, for a minute, take an example. If the union government would have INC there present there, then this majority scenario might not be present. But because Bharatiya Janata Party is in power and that is dominating over Hindi Heartland, that is why we are seeing this skewed result in front of us. So now that we have understood the causes, the more important part here is the consequences which we need to understand and also correct them, which we need to understand. Starting with, because of this particular skewed regional unevenness, what we are seeing? Policy bias. Now, if there is concentration of certain region in the representation of the majority, that region would be placed on priority. That means the policy would be made based on culture, linguistic and social preference of the dominant region which is bringing in the votes. That means it will be also sidelining the non-dominant regions. So this is a consequence that needs to be removed and the causes need to be corrected there. Second, we will also get to see centralization of power. This means if the states do not have representation in Lok Sabha, that means there is more power available to the center to mobilize policies, to change policies, and states have limited bargaining power because of their limited capacity in Lok Sabha. And this will also reduce the role of cooperative federalism that we have been so actively talking about, especially in the last decade. But when we talk about numbers and presence of LS majority, it looks something very different. Another important factor that we have seen in recent times as a consequence is regional alienation. Feeling of rule by others. That is why you see multiple incidences where the states are not accepting outsiders with the language from another state, where you are seeing language wars, where the states are denying cooperation with the center. It is all a consequence of situations like this, and it will also lead to long-term erosion of trust that is present for parliament as a legislative body, and also what kind of trust states place in the center to let the cooperative federalism actually play out in the real scenario. Now here I have a question for you. Do you think that the coalition over the years have facilitated and the history has shaped this dominant presence of Hindi heartland in LS majorities? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. Now I will be straight up moving towards understanding that how this can be corrected. If we are talking about short to medium term, we definitely need to focus on better coalition politics so that there are multiple stakeholders which ensure the LS majority, and we also need to bring the cooperative federalism model into action through strengthening interstate institutions, be it GST Council, be it interstate councils and more. For further long term, we need to focus on truly national parties. That means they cannot be concentrated in a certain region, rather their presence should be pan-India. Other than that, the delimitation of 2026 needs to be done very carefully, because the states which have been population controlling, they should not be penalized if they are not being rewarded, especially the southern states. And the democracy needs to be balanced with the federal values and federal fairness, which is most importantly placed in our constitution. Which leaves us with the very important question that can India remain a national democracy if national power repeatedly comes from one region only? Now you can let me know the dimensions if this is a question. Let's just say, then what will be the dimensions that you will be putting in? Leave it in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.